A book of around 400 pages would typically take me like 6 to 7 hours to read. This book took me 3 years. Hello, hi, welcome. My name is Jen. I make videos about books and love talking about books. And if you're interested in books, then you have come to the right place. Today I am slightly late on this video, to be completely honest, but I really wanted to share it anyway, so better late than never, I guess. Today I'm going to be sharing my September wrap-up, so all of the books that I read in the month of September. September was a slightly weird reading month for me. I was actually very busy all month, so I didn't read as much as I had wanted to. And it was also a month where I read some books that I probably wouldn't normally have picked up. So I don't think that I gave a single book 5 stars in September, which is unusual for me. Normally there would be at least one in a month that I absolutely adored, but I honestly didn't really adore any of these books. It was a bit of a strange reading month, but I did branch out quite a bit in genres, and I also read a book that I had been trying to finish for 3 years. So I would say that's an achievement. So without further ado, here are the books that I read in the month of September. The first book that I read in September was Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid. This is my first book by Jenkins Reid. I haven't read any of her other books, which I know are much more popular and beloved than this one is. I started this book right at the end of August and then finished it in the first sort of couple of days of September. So it was quite a good bridge from summer into autumn, I think. The book is actually set in the last weekend of August, so I felt like I somehow picked the best time to read it. So this is really not my typical book. If you have watched any of my videos before this one, you will have probably seen that I love fantasy, and that is definitely the sort of genre that I gravitate more towards. I don't tend to pick up, the actual thing on the top says the perfect beach read. I don't typically pick up a beach read. So yeah, this is a bit out there for me. So this book is set in Malibu in the 80s. It follows a surfer and model called Nina Reaver, who throws an annual party in her house on the beach every year. And the story follows the sort of lead up to this party. This party always attracts the kind of rich and famous in Malibu, who always sort of desire an invitation to this party because there's a real fascination with Nina and the whole Reaver family, because their father was actually a famous musician. And so this story follows the lead up to that party, but also just a look into this family, into their dynamics, their relationship with their famous father, and how his kind of life has impacted all of theirs as well. However, as we get to the party, we start to realise that all of the siblings in this family have some secrets that are about to spill out and cause some potential drama. I really enjoyed this book, a lot more than I thought I would. It has a lot about surfing culture and has a lot of summer beach vibes. But mostly at the heart of it, it is a story about family and about siblings and about do your parents' decisions in life really dictate who you're going to become. So it was just a really powerful and poignant story. which really surprised me because I was expecting just a beach read with a lot of romance. And even though there is romance in the story, it's definitely not the centre of the book. I cried whilst reading this book. It was definitely an emotional one. Even though Nina is the main character, all of the characters do get their own sort of sections of the story, so we get to learn a bit about all of the siblings and how all of their lives have been impacted very differently by the things that have happened to them growing up as children. And I just felt so much for these characters. I was so desperate for them to have happy endings. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. It was really moving and really thoughtful. But I guess it lacked a little bit of depth for me. I felt like the story could have gone a little bit further. The ending definitely wasn't what I was expecting to happen from the way that the book was set up. I don't want to go into any spoilers, so I won't say anything else, but in some ways the ending fell a little bit flat for me. And I think, yeah, the author could have gone a little bit further perhaps in how the characters all ended up and the decisions they ended up making. So yeah, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Would definitely recommend it. If you're sad about the summer ending, then maybe this one will help you to cling back onto sunny days. But yeah, I would say it's a good summer read and definitely a bit more meaningful and poignant than a typical beach read. The second book that I read in September was After Dark by Haruki Murakami. This is my second Haruki Murakami book. I've also read Colourless Sakura Dosaki and His Years of Pilgrimage. That is such a long title. Also by Haruki Murakami, and really enjoyed it, and really wanted to read more. I really want to read The Wind Up Bird Chronicle and also Kafka on the Shore, but I'm not a massive fan of big long books, particularly not in this kind of style, so I'm building myself up. So instead I thought I'd go for a shorter one, and I also wanted to get into something a bit more atmospheric and a bit darker for going into autumn, so I thought this would be a good one to pick. We begin this book at the approach of midnight, and we follow a character called Mari who is sat alone in a diner reading a book, and everything is kind of peaceful until she is disturbed and kind of gets wrapped up in this murder that has happened in a local hotel. Another part of the story, we follow Mari's sister, Eri, who is in a deep sleep. She's been in this sleep for months and has not woken up, and people don't really know why. And we also follow a man who is watching Eri sleep through a screen, and everything is a bit mysterious. It's all set around midnight, and sort of looks at what things are like after dark, at night time, and how things are sort of perceived quite differently at night as opposed to in the daytime. I really like weird and wonderful books, but this one definitely felt out there. And I'm kind of glad that I started on some of these shorter Murakami books to kind of get a flavour of the sort of thing he writes, rather than going straight in with one of his big stories, because they're definitely confusing and they definitely take some time to just think about. But when you do, they're honestly so clever, and just so interesting. Honestly, this man's brain is like bizarre, but that's what makes his books so great. Again, I gave this one, I think, a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really clever, really well done, but also, even though it's so short, it actually took me a while to get through. I thought I was just going to fly through this in a day, but it actually took me quite a few times to sit down and read before I kind of got a little bit bored and wanted to stop. So that's kind of weird for a short book. Well, a book this short is about 200 pages. In some places it was just a little bit too weird for me, but overall, yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I really liked kind of what the author, I think, was trying to say. And yeah, I would recommend it if you're trying to get into Murakami, perhaps like me, and you don't want to go straight in with like 1,000 pages. I think this is quite a good, from what I gather, quite a good sort of flavour of his storytelling. So in an average sized book with average sized font, I would say that I read about a page a minute. So if a book is, let's say again, average size of about 400 pages, I'll read that book in 400 minutes, which is 60, 120, about 6 or 7 hours, I think. So yeah, a book of around 400 pages would typically take me like 6 to 7 hours to read. This book took me 3 years. And that book is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. I really love Agatha Christie. I've read a few of her books so far, like not loads, but maybe 5 or 6, and I've really enjoyed every one that I've read, apart from this one, which is bizarre because when you look at lists of Agatha Christie's best novels or books you must read before you die, this one is always on the list. So I kind of got into my head that this must be absolutely incredible. But I mean, it took me 3 years to finish it. When I say it took me 3 years as well, I actually started the book like 5 times. So I've read the first 50 pages of this book literally like 5 times. And every time I've reread it, I've honestly not remembered what happened. I found this book quite boring. I found this book a bit tedious and long and kind of forgettable. There wasn't really anything about it that sort of stood out to me as really intriguing or mysterious. I didn't really care what happened. I wasn't super invested in the story or finding the murderer. And I kind of guessed the ending really early on. I do almost wonder if this book would be more interesting if you haven't really read anything by Agatha Christie before. And I can tell that this book really did set a tone for murder mystery stories. However, having read others of her work, which was so good and I really loved, my expectation on this one was so high that it just didn't match up at all. So yeah, because it took me about 3 years to finish, I would say it's not that gripping and just not that much of a page turner for me. I do, however, think that the ending, you know, I respect the ending for what it was, and I can tell why people do like this story. It just really wasn't for me. So I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. But you know what? I give myself 5 out of 5 stars for finishing it finally after 3 years. I didn't even say what the book was about. That's how much I was just excited about the fact that I finished it. A man called Roger Ackroyd, he is in love with this woman whose husband has died, and people kind of think that she might have murdered the husband or poisoned him, but then the woman herself dies. So Roger Ackroyd is kind of determined to find out what's happened. However, he then dies. This is one of the stories in the kind of Poirot series, so at this point, I haven't really followed the series along in order, but at this point, Poirot has kind of come to this town to kind of settle down, and he's not really wanting to do any kind of detective work anymore. However, this story is told from the perspective of Poirot's new neighbour, who has kind of got himself wrapped up in this, and this kind of pulls Poirot back into the scene to try and work out what has happened. And the final book that I read this month was Verity by Colleen Hoover. This was such a fun read. So I read this one along with my friend. We read it at the same time together, which made it so much more fun, I think, than if I'd read it on my own. So in this story, we follow a young woman who is a writer, and she's had kind of a traumatic thing happen to her, which has sort of got her out of her groove in writing. However, she is offered this opportunity to finish a series of books written by this famous author who has had an accident and is ill. So this woman goes to this author's house to kind of sift through her work and her notes and just sort of pick up where she's left off. However, once she's in this house, she realises that there is more going on in this story than first meets the eye. And I won't say anything more than that, but this book was so much fun. It's such a fun mystery story. There were moments where it was definitely really creepy. So me and my friend read this together, which made it so fun because we were just sharing our theories of what was going to happen. And I was so determined that I knew what was going on, and it completely wasn't that at all, which was really fun, and definitely one that keeps you kind of guessing, and such a fast page turner, really quick, easy mystery read. Definitely one I think if you're in a bit of a reading slump and you just want something fast paced and quick, this one was really easy to get into. I would say there's a fair bit of adult content, so if you're not really into that, I would say this is maybe not the one for you. The downside is that it maybe could have gone a little bit further. I feel like I understood why it ended the way it did, but I sort of wish that it had gone a little bit further and maybe been a little bit more creepy. I just think the author could have done a bit more with it and felt a little bit like she held back. But on the whole, it was so much fun. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Would really recommend if you're looking for something easy and fun to read. So those are my reads for this month. Honestly, I'm quite happy that I managed to read 4 books in September because it was such a busy month of my life, and October is kind of looking the same. Thankfully, the work on our house is finally about to start, which means we're going to be quickly trying to strip wallpaper. We're getting our walls plastered, hopefully getting part of the fireplace sorted, looking at flooring. So we're doing a lot this month, but I have some books that I'm really excited to read this month. I'm also really excited to read some more specifically autumnal, atmospheric kind of reads, which I sort of got to towards the end of this month, but I'm excited to hopefully read some more fantasy as well. I'm definitely missing fantasy books a lot. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, if you've read any of these books as well, I'd love to know what you thought about them. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a really lovely day or evening or whatever time it is that you're watching this video, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye!